Got female customers? Ripper. Then you're in the right place, as this episode of Australia's #1 marketing show is all about how to market to the ladies.
Welcome to the Small Business Big Marketing Show, where successful small business owners share their secrets to take your marketing to the next level. Now here's your host, Tim Reid.
G'day, motivated business owner. Timbo Reid here, back in the Small Business Big Marketing studio. Well done for joining us inside that movement that we do lovingly call Small Business Big Marketing, a movement laser focused on helping you, the motivated business owner, grow an amazing business through some really smart marketing. That's just what we do around here. And to that end, let's get stuck in to some marketing GOLD.
Small Business Big Marketing with Tim Reid.
Now, if you're a long-time listener to this show, you'll know I have a love-hate kind of relationship with social media. A, it's a time suck. B, it's a distraction to us small business owners who have work to do, by the way, as if you didn't know. And C, social media is far too often a one-way street. And it's that street I want to go down with you for the next couple of minutes. Let me explain. I follow the wonderfully sweet Beechworth Bakery on Facebook. In fact, their founder Tom O'Toole was to this day one of the most revealing and entertaining interviews I've had the pleasure of doing on this show. They post great stuff on Facebook. Pictures of creamy vanilla slices, entertaining activities they have going on at their different stores, photos of their staff goofing about. It's a brand that has loads of fun. But it's also a brand that chooses not to engage in conversation. On a recent post, I reached out and congratulated them on what they were doing. Their response? Nothing. On another post, they alerted followers to the fact that they were auctioning a Hawthorn football jumper for charity. The Hawks are my team. I wanted to buy the jumper, so I asked if I could bid online. Their response? Nothing. Now, I could take all this personally. However, as I scroll through their other posts where followers have posted comments and questions, I note that the Beechworth Bakery has also chosen not to respond. Now, I love the Beechworth Bakery. After all, they do make the yummiest cakes and pastries going around. But I don't love a brand that chooses not to engage. Social media is a two-way street, team. It's best defined as people having conversations online. That's pretty simple. And despite my love-hate relationship with it, I do love the fact platforms such as Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, Google+, give us, the business owner, an amazing opportunity to converse in real time with our prospects and our customers. That's amazing. You know, that's just an amazing improvement that we've seen in marketing over the past few years. Now, such an honour should be respected and used wisely. It can only lead to more loyal customers and ultimately more sales. On the flip side, if it's not respected, then over time, customers will find other brands to engage with. Beechworth Bakery, I do still love you, but I would love to hear from you every now and then. Now, where's that vanilla slice? Alrighty, now we have got an action-packed show today. I'm about to introduce you to Amanda Stevens, and we are going to have a fireside chat about how to market to women. However, before we do that, let me tell you about our good friends at Net Registry and how they can help you get your online marketing sorted. You know, one of the biggest frustrations many small business owners have with their online marketing is their Google search results, or should I say lack of them. So many say to me, Timbo, when I Google my business, I'm not even on page 3. And you keep saying you are who Google says you are. That is freaking me out, they say. If that sounds like you could probably do with these 3 magic words. Search engine optimization, aka SEO. A key part of that is having the right keywords on your website, meaning that whenever someone Googles something related to your business, your page can be right up there. Put simply, a key benefit of solid SEO is that Google will know what each page on your website is all about, and that can only improve your ranking. Now, a great way to get this sorted is to talk to the good guys at Net Registry. As proud sponsors of this show, they have an exclusive offer for you. So take advantage of their keyword strategy service today, and instead of paying 250 buckaroonies like everyone else, get your keywords sorted for just $99. Start getting found online today, team. Head over to netregistry.com.au and get your online marketing sorted. That's netregistry.com.au, and tell them Timbo sent you. As I mentioned at the start of the show, we are having a chat today with Amanda Stevens all about how to market to the ladies. And it's probably a conversation we should have had on this show episodes ago, because they actually do make up over 50% of the population. So a rather important audience that us marketers need to get our heads around. And even if your business doesn't market to women, I think there are still loads of learnings in this fireside chat. Now, I identified Amanda as someone who I should share this conversation with, because she really is an expert when it comes to marketing to women. She's one of the most in-demand female speakers in Australia. She's even shared the stage, check this, with Donald Trump, Sir Bob Geldof, Sir Richard Branson, and Condoleezza Rice. And along the way, she's built $1 million marketing consultancy that she sold in 2011. And she was awarded Young Australian of the Year for career achievement. And she's written 6 business books, the latest being Retail Revival. So she is in a good position to have this conversation with. Now, let's get stuck in. We started off by talking about how too many marketers regard women as a niche.
I like to call female consumers the 80% minority because it's a fairly well-accepted worldwide statistic now that women are controlling somewhere between 80 and 85% of all consumer purchase decisions. So it very much is a case of marketing to the majority.
Wow. Well, let's actually define women, because, rather broad term. And when we talk about when you talk too about how to market to women, like, who have you got front and centre? Is it teens? Is it 20-somethings? Is it mums? Is it women in the workforce? Who are we talking about?
Yeah, that's a great question. And I think probably the biggest mistake that a lot of brands make, big and small, is defining their target audience as women 18 plus. And the fact is that within that very broad group, there are literally hundreds of subsets, depending on how you define them. But we know about women that differentiates them quite significantly from men is that we change, and the way that we interact with brands and our motivations and priorities change quite significantly with a change in life stage. So I like to define women certainly in the broadest sense of having, there's really kind of four subsets of women, and they're based on life stage. So adult women generally go through 4 key life stages, and when brands and marketers and business owners can get very clear on their target audience in the context of those life stages, it makes marketing to them more effective, and certainly get better return for marketing dollar.
Yeah, I remember all my years working in advertising, one of the things about defining, in fact, we kind of got drummed into us too, even that notion of a target audience, that there's people actually sitting somewhere waiting for us to target them, was all a bit weird. But it's actually getting beyond the demographic and understanding like the insights into them. So obviously those 4 different life stages, the insights into them are going to be different. What's keeping a teenage girl up at night versus a 30-year-old woman in the workforce up at night versus a 45-year-old mum of teenagers up at night, going to be 3 different things that we kind of need to understand.
Yeah, absolutely right. And the other interesting thing is that if you look at how women are changing so significantly, from a social trend perspective, your average 35-year-old woman is very different today to what she was even one generation ago. We used to define the average Australian household as mum, dad and 2 kids, and that now makes up less than 15% of all Australian households. And from a female perspective, interestingly, right now the shift that's happened is that there's currently more single female households in Australia than non-single female households, which is in itself quite extraordinary, but it's also an incredible opportunity for marketers to better connect with women and really recognise that women are spending a much longer proportion of their life single, both at the beginning of life, because we're getting married later, and also at the end of life, because women are outliving men. We're obviously living longer, and also women are more likely to be single post-50, because that's the only age group where the divorce rate in Australia is currently on the increase, and 68% of those divorces are instigated by the female. So
this is a very depressing conversation. I think we might end it here.
It depends on how you look at it. If you've got your husband hat on or your marketer hat on.
Yeah, correct. Well, therein too lies the challenge, hey, putting one hat on and taking the other one off. I mean, I find this particularly interesting, even for my brand, which is the Small Business Big Marketing brand, Amanda. Like, I've been accused of, I think I've got more of a male listening audience than a female listening audience, and that's kind of showing up both in my forum membership. I had a meet up the other night in Melbourne where there were more blokes than women. So I'm really taking notes here and figuring out how on earth I identify those life stages and target them. Does a business or a brand need to create separate marketing messages for the women versus the men? So let's for example think about a vet, your local vet, because it's quite. We were saying before we hit record, this conversation would be easy to have, and we will talk about some bigger brands that are getting it right, getting it wrong later on. But how does the local vet do it, where he or she has got a clientele of both men and women? Do you have to have the female brochure and the male brochure?
Yeah, great question. And I think obviously there's a lot of people listening to this who are thinking that very thing. I'm marketing to men and women. How do I target both audiences without alienating the other? And the short answer to that is, if you get the marketing to women piece right, you actually by default market to men better.
Oh, that makes us look stupid.
No, not at all, not at all. There's a great saying that if you meet the expectations of women, you often exceed the expectations of men. We're much more difficult customers. We factor in a much broader set of criteria in making purchase decisions. So if you're marketing to men and women, it's about recognising that men and women will take completely different aspects out of the same piece of communication. So, for example, men are more likely to recall exact facts and data, whereas women are more drawn to and are more likely to recall more emotive-based communication.
I've heard and read you say this, and can I challenge you on that a little bit, because I'm here to support the blokes, and in all my marketing speak, all us marketers talk about the need to build emotion. And first and foremost, before being male or female, we're an emotional being. We do respond to emotion, both men and women, more than we do the rational, I think. I'm no psychologist, and I know you've done work with neuroscientists and all that, but I'll give you an example, like the Jeep campaign, right? Like, that hits me so emotionally. It's all about freedom. Every Jeep ad I see, I just go, gee, I think I probably should get a Jeep, because they're just so emotionally engaging. The other one, Corona Beer, that wonderful outdoor campaign, From Where You'd Rather Be. Again, clearly I love freedom, because that campaign's all about freedom. I don't see myself responding pre-purchase. I do post-purchase, but I don't see myself responding pre-purchase in a rational way. Yet you're saying that women respond emotionally and men don't.
Well, no, I'm not saying that. I'm saying women are more predisposed to responding emotionally. And, this isn't finite by any chance. And when I talk about men and women, it's most men most of the time and most women most of the time. Yep. There are certainly no absolutes in any of this. But the research shows that women respond and recall, are more likely to recall information that is emotive-based, storytelling and human-based communication. Now, the point you make is a really interesting one, because it's not an either-or proposition. If you're marketing to women, it doesn't mean you're not marketing to men. Mm-hmm. But we know that if you get the marketing to women piece right, you are likely to appeal to men as well.
Interesting. So back to our vet example, what you're suggesting is, and a vet's a good example of someone who would have very much a split clientele. I mean, I guess depends on their geographical location, but generally speaking, split clientele. So they should focus on what are the emotional triggers for the women to decide whether they're going to use that vet or not, and build their marketing messages around that, knowing that they're going to pick up us blokes in the net as well.
That's right. And a vet's a good example, which is a very emotive, or can be a very emotive purchase interaction, if you like. I had my dog at the vet recently, and he needed, $3,000 surgery. I mean, it was no question for me because it's an emotional purchase, and so the price elasticity doesn't really come into it. And a good example there where my husband was really asking all the questions, how the operation was going to work technically, and what the process was, whereas I was just so focused on the emotion of making sure that he was going to be okay.
I reckon your hubby, and here I go, I'm going against what I said before, he's probably working out whether he could do the operation himself.
Exactly, trying to problem solve.
Yeah.
So that's the mistake a lot of people make in a sales perspective is, there's a male, it's somewhere in the male DNA, I haven't located it yet, it's somewhere in, it's called the problem-solving gene. Mm-hmm. You guys love solving problems, and in fact scientists have recently discovered that when a guy finds a solution to a problem, dopamine levels, which is your happy hormone, dopamine levels rise, so you actually scientifically kind of get off on solving problems. And so, we see this happen in a retail sense where, a woman will be wanting something or asking to purchase something, and if the problem is solved too quickly by the male, the person who's serving her, she feels as though she's not being listened to, even if it's the right product or service for her.
Yeah, right. Yeah, problem solving is actually a big one. It came up in a recent talk I did where I've been talking about the notion of a helpful business and just being helpful, which problem solving is by nature being helpful. It does release dopamine, and it's actually a really good staff retention strategy, because if you become a helpful business by creating marketing and sales processes that actually are just unbelievably helpful to the customers, your staff feel really good about themselves.
Yeah, absolutely. But the danger is not being too helpful to the point where you're solving problems for customers too quickly. And what the danger in that is not, losing the opportunity to take a step back and ask more questions about that customer, not just why they're purchasing that product or service, but who they are and what they're all about, and building those, relationship building opportunities that often exist in a purchase, in a customer interaction.
Yeah, okay. Now, listen, by the way, listeners, I am talking to Amanda Stevens, who is a speaker, author and marketer specialising in how to market to women, a conversation that we should have had on this show long ago. Amanda, you say that 80% of women say marketers don't get them, yet 80% of women make the purchase decision. That's a pretty big disconnect.
Isn't it? Indeed. The research shows that, ironically, even though most marketers understand that their core audience is women, and yet it's that very audience that sometimes, particularly bigger brands, are still not connecting with. And there's, I think, lots of reasons for that. I think the advertising industry's kind of dirty little secret is that although women are making the majority of purchase decisions, the majority of ads are created by men.
Is that still the case? Like, is that a fact?
Yeah. Less than 10% of senior creatives in ad agencies are female.
Wow, I thought that would have changed. It certainly was the case when I was around that space, but I thought it's funny, the advertising industry, as much as they do they pretend to be leaders, quite often they're followers. They're behind because they don't want to do anything that's kind of risky. Quite a conservative industry. What do you think then, to that point? I was kind of thinking about ads because I want to have the sex sells conversation, because again, we may share different views there, but There's an ad that was on over summer on TV for Bonds undies. Bonds women's undies. So I guess Bonds is like a Hanes, for overseas listeners, American listeners, Hanes would be the Bonds equivalent. And there was a TV commercial, I don't know whether you've seen it, but it had an attractive young girl, I'd put her at 19 or 20, in her undies and singlet, skipping outside. And her undies were changing colour across the 30 seconds. Now, for a young bloke, that was a very appealing TV commercial. But how does that appeal to women? Or doesn't it?
Look, I think that particular commercial does appeal to women in that demographic because it's young, it's fun, it's, the message is kind of fun, freedom, expressing yourself, and those are certainly key messages that appeal to that demographic.
Right.
The fact that it also appealed to men, I think, was just perhaps a fortunate byproduct of that particular commercial.
So that's a good example then of life stages. So that life stage, that younger life stage, key insight into them, freedom, expressing who they are, being a little bit wacky. So then that gives you permission as a marketer to create marketing that is a little bit more, it's not really on edge, but to me it was like, I wonder whether that's the right thing or not. You'd think Bonds would know, big brand, lots of research.
Absolutely. I think possibly if I was to recreate that commercial, the other element I would focus on creatively would be friends, because friendship is the thing that we know drives that particular demographic. It's all about fun and friends, and freedom. So they're kind of, those insights are really, if you are marketing to that demographic as an example, they're the kind of messages and feelings that you need to invoke to connect with them.
Well, that's interesting
because different, obviously, to other life stages.
Yeah, totally. Well, it's interesting. The next Bonds commercial, clearly I'm following the Bonds commercials. Funny is that it is three women actually on bikes, and they're sort of in front of a green screen, and on the green screen are all these kind of things happening, like Olympic Games moments and all sorts of stuff, and they're just riding, I don't know, weird, but it is a group of friends, so maybe they knew what you were thinking. Maybe.
Hey? I mean, that's an interesting dynamic that, as a little bit of an insight for your listeners, is that the really great opportunity when you're marketing to women is that dynamic which we call the inner circle.
Well, here we go.
Because women are getting married later and having children later, what we're finding is that throughout their 20s and 30s, they're surrounding themselves with, I guess it's almost a pseudo-family. It's usually 2 or 3 other women. And the interesting thing that more and more research is showing is that it is that inner circle that women are relying on for advice, recommendations and information about new products and services. So particularly for small businesses, this is such a great opportunity because it means that when you're marketing and selling to women, you're often not just marketing and selling to them, you're also marketing and selling to their inner circle. So it becomes a multi-layered sales opportunity.
Yeah, that's great insight. Great insight. That's the sisterhood right there, isn't it?
Absolutely. And, the research shows that if women have a good customer experience, they're 5 to 10 times more likely to engage in positive word of mouth than an average man. So women are the ones, even if for those listening, businesses listening that are marketing to men and women, just make no mistake that it's your female customers who are far more likely, given the right experience, to become walking unpaid advertisements, and brand ambassadors for you, if you like.
Yeah, they love a chat.
Yep. We speak on average about 10 to 12,000 more words in any given day. So, you might as well be using up some of those conversations about your brand.
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, a mate of mine, he's a professor of marketing at a university, and he did tell me a number of years ago, and clearly that quota has gone up, but he used to say that women speak, you use 7,000 words a day and men use 4, but the quota is, you're saying 10 to 12, whatever it is, it's significantly different. And I'm not sure grunting counts within that, which is what us blokes can do a lot of. So that's a great tip, that inner circle thing. I love that. Talking to that and that whole experience, because experience is something, a brand experience is something that does get talked about and does build that emotional attachment. And I know you're a strong believer on that whole customer experience approach to marketing. Can you give me an example of maybe a brand that you've seen or that you love that does offer a great experience and as a result does get talked about?
Yeah, I think, we definitely right now heading into an experience economy, and the shift that's going on right now is that switch from word of mouth to word of mouth. So going from word of mouth to word of mouth, all conversations now, or the majority of conversations are going online. So again, timely opportunity, particularly for small businesses, to create a competitive advantage by having brand advocates. And I think it's that difference between delivering experiences to your customers that are satisfactory versus those that are, over and above expectations and that are so out of the box and extraordinary that you just can't help yourself but talk about them. And we've all had, customer experiences that are extraordinary and unexpected and do well and truly go over and above satisfactory, and they're the brand experiences that we talk about. I've just written a new book on retail, and what I wanted to do with this book is identify what are the common characteristics of great retailers, because retail industry, we've lost some iconic brands globally, and certainly here in Australia in the last few years, and even just last year, 3,000 retailers in Australia shut their doors. So it's been a pretty tough climate. But in that same economic climate and the same consumer confidence, we've had retail brands that have achieved double-digit growth. And in identifying what the common characteristics of those brands, what are they doing differently, creating customer experiences that are worthy of a Friday night dinner party conversation was the standout factor. And even for brands that charge a premium for their products and services, they create customer experiences and have such high customer advocacy that they're able to grow their once small business into a big business by using and leveraging their existing customer base.
Two questions. That book, was that through the eyes, was it through your eyes, and you're a woman, but was it looking at it from a marketing to women perspective or just retail in general?
It's retail in general,
okay.
And there's clearly a slightly female skew to it.
Yep.
Predominantly because women do make the majority of the decisions. And there were some brands that I studied as part of writing the book that were really interesting. A brand in Australia here that I know is launched into the US now called Lorna Jane. Brilliant Australian success story. Now, Lorna Jane, for the listeners who aren't aware, basically they sell exercise, women's exercise fashion. If you break it down, what they're selling really is really expensive lycra.
Yeah, they are, aren't they?
And, the garments that you can purchase in Lorna Jane, you can get at much less prices in other stores. But Lorna Jane as a brand has such high customer advocacy that women flock to them and happily pay the premium.
Well, can we talk about that? That's a great example. I've only had 4 knockbacks on this show from interviews, and Lorna Jane was one of them. So, I've got my back up. And she didn't want to reveal her marketing secrets, I was told. But I've been into that store. I've been in there with my wife, and I've gone in there as a marketer. I felt a little weird, like a bit of a perv, being in there by myself. But they're not... Where's the experience? Because I couldn't pick it up. They've got a cool website. They've got the odd cool brochure. But as a store, I was struggling to see anything particularly special. Oh,
okay. That surprises me because their in-store experience, I think, is extraordinary.
Okay. You'd see, and I've only been into 2 different shops, and maybe they weren't their kind of flagship shops. So what are they doing there, Amanda?
I think what immediately stands out when you go into a Lorna Jane store is just their staff have obviously been trained in a certain way to make customers feel good. Now, for a woman, there's only, one of the most hideous things in the world is to actually have to try on anything with lycra, whether it be swimwear or exercise gear or whatever.
For a man too, by the way.
So I think their staff, they make you feel good, they connect with you on an emotional level, and they make it a nice, fun, positive experience.
Right.
And when you have a customer in store who is in that mindset, particularly women, we will spend. That's as simple as it gets.
Yeah, okay. Yeah, so what you've identified, it's not that experience is not necessarily something physical or visual. For Lorna Jane, it's in the way they go about conversing with their customers.
That's right. And here's the opportunity for small business, because big brands right now, unfortunately, are cutting staff and cutting staff training. So as we're heading into an experience economy, I think right now we're at a real tipping point of small businesses having an opportunity to create a competitive advantage over even their biggest competitors by creating a customer experience that completely and utterly, puts them on the map. I went into a big department store just last week, I won't say which one, and I literally could not find a staff member to take my money. I had 4 items, was spending about $200. I walked the store for 10, 15 minutes, and I eventually got so frustrated that I went to the door and set off the security alarms, thinking, well, someone would surely come then. And no one did.
No one did?
No one did.
I've experienced that myself. I haven't had the courage to set off the security alarm, but that's a great idea. I'll try that next time. What's the opportunity then for small business? Is in the customer service, is actually providing that kind of almost tender loving care, isn't it?
Absolutely. Creating relationships and, as I said, delivering experiences that get your business talked about at dinner parties on Friday night.
Yeah, it's funny, like, again, marketer to marketer, I still don't see a lot of this stuff happening. These 1%ers, these little moments of truth that you can really make a difference. And it's not as if what you're suggesting is, it's not big budget stuff. It's not about, spending loads of money. It's just like that Lorna Jane example is a great one where they've realised that, hey, for women coming into a store and trying on Lycra, that is a very confronting thing because they're going to see every bump and curve, known to man, literally. But so to actually just understand that as an insight and address it, that's going to get talked about.
Yeah, and as I said, it's about using your existing customers to grow your market share, because if they have a good experience, they'll tell their friends. And getting talked about is, I think, the litmus test for a successful small business.
Yeah, totally. Let's just, I said we'd talk about whether sex sells or not, and we kind of touched on that Bonds TV commercial. You're of the opinion sex doesn't sell, aren't you?
Well, it's not a finite answer, I don't think. I think as human beings, we are drawn to images and messages that are aspirational. But if it's using sex for the sake of it, I don't think that does work, particularly when you're marketing to women. Does sex sell? It might give you a short-term sales spike, but where the real value and the real opportunity in marketing to women lies is building a long-term profitable relationship. And small business owners who are listening to this would know that it's the lifetime value of a customer that really matters, not what
sale
response you might be getting from an ad that's sexy.
What do you think about those? I only ever see it when it appears in the pages of a marketing magazine or a marketing website, but those, like, for example, again, it's an underwear brand, I think, or a bra brand that uses different shaped women, not going for the supermodel look, but using all shapes and sizes. In fact, I think Target did it of most recent times with that campaign. As I said, I only ever see it in the marketing pages as something that's, this is a bit wacky. They're not using real models.
Shock horror.
Yeah. Is that, to me, it just seems like a bit of a I don't know, it's a one-off and they'll go back next year to using real models, or when I say real models, skinny models, I guess.
Yeah.
I'm stepping on eggshells here, Amanda. Help me.
No, it's a great question, and I think we've seen a lot of brands in the last decade certainly make great strides to using more diverse women, both in shape and in age as well. I mean, the Dove Real Beauty campaign, I think globally really put that strategy on the map, and now we're seeing, as you say, brands like Target doing it. I would hope to think that they'll continue to do it because the research shows that women do respond positively to it. The fact is we're not all size 8 with flawless skin, and we aren't able to Photoshop ourselves before we walk out the door each morning. So I think it's that fine line between creating a brand image and advertising messages that are aspirational but are also real and reflect the realities of women and how they feel and what keeps them up at night. And diversity, not just, as I said, in terms of shape, but also age. I mean, 50-plus women in Australia is the biggest untapped market. And ironically, they're the ones who, over the next few decades, will have the money they want to spend, but they sit in research groups with me week after week, and they say the same things. They say things to me like, Amanda, do businesses think that when we turn 50 we drop dead? Because they just feel completely ignored. They feel either ignored or they feel, even worse, stereotyped as frail old ladies. And, 50, as I say to my clients, 50 is the new 37.
The new 37? It used to be the new 40.
Yeah.
Getting younger.
37. Yeah, your average 50 or even 60-year-old woman is not what she was a generation ago. The number of women starting businesses over the age of 50, for example, has tripled in the last 5 years. So when a woman turns 50 or even 60, her mindset isn't slowing down. It's often, we call it prime time.
Man, this has been a fascinating discussion. It's a can of worms, and it deserves much longer than the time we're giving it, but at least the discussion, at least within the realms of small business, big marketing, has been started. I just want to finish off. You've given us some great insights. That inner circle tip is a great one. The notion of getting clear on the different life stages and which life stage your target audience is within, so you can create messaging around then. Any last little nugget that you can leave small business owners listening with in regards to marketing to their female audience? Yeah,
I think the one takeaway that would be powerful for a lot of businesses out there is to really recognise what I think's a bit of a dormant marketing asset, and that is your existing customer base. If you did nothing else but profiled your existing customers, perhaps took the top 20% of them and rewarded them and gifted them and recognised them in a way that wowed them, that alone would generate the word-of-mouth customer advocacy that you need to grow your business. It's that simple.
Well, the women have got 12,000 words to use, so we may as well help them use them per day.
Absolutely. Get them talking about your business.
Love it. Hey, Amanda, thank you so much for sharing how to market to women gold on the show.
Pleasure, Tim. Thanks for having me.
Well, I hope you enjoyed that interview as much as I did bringing it to you. Before I give you my top 3 learnings from it, let me quickly tell you about Swiftly.com. And I say quickly because that's exactly what Swiftly is all about. Small design fixes fast. Swiftly is ideal for altering your business card details, logo alterations, banner ad updates, even photo touch-ups. Actually, I was in their head office only this week, and they showed me a cool service they've got where you can get your logo altered depending on the season or the time of the year. So if you wanted to add a little Easter flavour to your logo, Swiftly can do that. If you wanted to add a little, whatever it is, what little kind of theme you wanted to add to your logo for a short period of time, they can even do that. Very cool. I digress. Now, who doesn't love a good photo touch-up? Because that's what Swiftly can do as well. All sorts of small design fixes fast. You simply upload the artwork that needs fixing, tell them what needs doing, and boom, within the hour, often much quicker, it's done. All for just a massive $19. Check them out. swiftly.com. That's SWIFTLY.com. Now, that whole marketing to women topic, we could have gone on for a lot longer because obviously there's plenty more to cover. However, hopefully there was some marketing GOLD in there for you. My top 3 learnings from that chat with Amanda. Number 1, get your marketing sorted for your female customers and the men will follow. Isn't that interesting, hey? Us followers, we do love following the ladies, I must admit, but that's a really interesting concept to think, if you do have customers who are female and male, then getting your marketing sorted for the females is a good place to start. Number 2, give thought to the life stage your customers are in and how that impacts their purchase behaviour. I think sometimes we don't look beyond demographics when we're thinking about who's buying from us, but if you can kind of get your head inside the mind of your customer and what life stage they're in, how they think about purchasing from you, what annoys them about purchasing from you, what criteria they use to decide to purchase from you or a competitor. These are great questions to ask. Number 3, word of mouth. Amanda mentioned that. Haven't heard that for a while, but it's a ripper. It's a great mindset to have, I guess, knowing that people are talking about you on social media. Back to my editorial from the top of the program. People are talking about you online. You may as well be there and contribute, and hopefully they'll, answer you back. If you've got a key learning from that episode, from that chat with Amanda, then I would love to hear it. Head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and look for episode 181. Leave your comments in the show notes. I would love to hear what you learnt from that. All right, team, that almost brings us to the end of another episode of Australia's #1 marketing show. Remember, actually, I've got a very special guest making a reappearance at the very end of this episode. El Presidente, President Obama himself, decided, he tapped me on the shoulder. He said, Timbo, do you mind if I read some more listener reviews from your iTunes listing? So, of course, I had to say yes. So hang around for that. Remember, Net Registry are there to get your online marketing sorted. Swiftly are there for you to get small design fixes done fast. The Small Business Big Marketing Forum is there. I'm in there every day answering marketing questions of members. So head over to smallbusinessbigmarketing.com and you can register within 2 minutes and be in there answering questions. And there's a classroom in there with a whole lot of marketing training that I've created as well. Next week's guest, an ex-Google employee who has gone off and designed an app that solves a very big problem very simply. So we haven't had the app conversation for quite a while, so really looking forward to getting Troy on the show. I reckon that's about enough, team. I'm Timbo Reid. You have been listening, by the way, if you didn't know already, to Australia's #1 marketing show. May your marketing be the best marketing. Bye for now.
You've been listening to the Small Business Big Marketing Show with Tim Reid. Want more marketing goodness? Then visit smallbusinessbigmarketing.com.
As a solo environmental ecology consultant, in business for 7 years, competing against some of the largest companies in the world, this podcast is more than gold. The guests interviewed and the complete delivery is professional, fun, and more importantly, genuinely applicable and successful for sole practitioners like me. Been listening now for a year and have worked my way through the backlog. This show is rare because it works, and I work a lot with rare plants and animals, so I would know. Thanks, Timbo. This podcast is truly generous with advice and ideas for small businesses. I've learned so much about creative marketing, found interesting products to aid my marketing, and discovered exciting business owners who divulge their wealth of knowledge. This show makes you excited about marketing your business. It inspires you to become a better business person for your customers. Tim gives it all to us for free. I feel like I've stumbled upon this hidden treasure and am so grateful.
Smallbusinessbigmarketing.com